Welcome everyone to a fresh edition of Draft on Tap with Danny Shimon and myself, Aldo Gandia. Really looking forward to this show. We're also going to talk about Caleb Williams. We're going to look at besides the draft prospects that Danny likes in the defensive tackle position. We're also going to look at some of the free agents that might be available, because if the Bears don't draft one with the limited capital they currently have for the draft, they will probably look for somebody in free agency. And we will also do a mock draft starting just one pick, the 75th pick. The scenario being that if the Bears choose a quarterback with the number one position, Caleb Williams, presumably, right? And a wide receiver like Rome Odunze at number 9, and don't do anything in between and are picking at 75, what are you doing? Are you going with one of those defensive tackles? Are you looking at a pass rusher? We'll see who Pro Football Network, the mock simulator that we have, has listed for us, and then Danny will evaluate those candidates and then make the pick for us. I think that's about our show. We might have some more. Oh, yeah, there's a couple of other things, but we'll save that for later. And I do want to say one thing before we start going with Danny. If you are watching on Facebook and want us, Danny and myself, to see your comments, you need to go over to streamyard.com/Facebook and register. It's free. It's totally free, and then we will have access to your comments. So thank you, Ant Mass. Ant Mass was the first one on here, and he said this is going to be a great topic because he's been wondering whether we should draft a defensive tackle or add one via free agency. So we'll cover those topics. Danny Shimon, how are you, my friend?
We're getting ready. I'm getting ready for a down the stretch run. I have not left my place of residence for about 2 days now. I've been knee deep into tape and breaking down defensive linemen. And just a great point right there. Although I just want to follow up real quick, please, for all the listeners, do participate. Your participation is key here. I'd love to hear your feedback in terms of the players we go over tonight, some of the players you want to go over. I know Aldo's got a running list of players that you guys want me to scout, and just send over to Aldo. And we'll do a show probably right before the draft where we can just break down your guys's players. And so just please, participation is welcomed, and we love when we hear from our listeners. So, but yeah, getting back to your question, Aldo, man, I'm just I don't know what day it is. I think it's Wednesday. I'm not sure the date. I haven't seen the light outside. I heard it was supposed to be a nice day out here today. I'm not sure. I see your affliction shirt. I'm thinking back to we're going to the Jersey Shore. We'll do some fist pumping, and so what's going on? Tell me what's going on, man.
That's hilarious. Well, I knew yet you haven't seen much daylight, which is why I put the draft countdown on the screen. It's 14 days, 22 hours, and 55 minutes from this very moment when the Chicago Bears are on the clock. And so we'll keep that up for a little while. And this is going to be your place for draft coverage. We'll talk more about the weekday of the draft coverage that we're going to have. But let me tell you, you're going to have the expertise of Danny Shimon and Greg Gabriel and a bunch of other people. So this will be one of your places of destination. Over in the comments section, I want to welcome Cliff. He's already got a question for you. Danny, your thoughts on the Bears drafting 2 defensive interior players last year, as well as re-signing Billings? Is the interior D-line a need as big as edge and wide receiver? Great question, Cliff.
Yeah, Cliff, great question. You would think, right? They drafted 2 young guys last year. They have Andrew Billings. So that's 3 solid guys up front, but they lost, Justin Jones, who, for whatever, his time with the Bears was. By the end of last year, he was one of the better players up front, in terms of his run defense, even, providing some inside pressure, getting some sacks. So I think you're going to need at least 4 guys, for rotation purposes. So you're going to need to add another player, and whether it's a guy in the draft, whether it's someone in free agency. Remember, there's going to be another wave of free agency after the draft here, guys, where teams fill their needs with draft picks, and, veterans are going to get cut. So that could be another area in which, Ryan Poles is going to go in here looking for, defensive lineman guys, whether it's edge or interior guys. And I think whoever's, it depends on where they're at. Right now, only 4 picks. It's kind of hard to kind of say, hey, let's go here and there and all this stuff. But, the assumption is that, like Aldo mentioned, Caleb at 1, one of the receivers, hopefully Rome Odunze at 9. If he's not there, maybe offensive tackle. We'll see what happens. But there is no defensive lineman that's worthy of the number 9 pick right now. Even the edge guys, for me, value is right around 12, 13, 14 in the middle of that first round is where you get, I think that's where, Dallas Turner could be a guy you could kind of maybe squeeze up there. But, Cliff, yeah, I do think interior defensive alignment is important. And Matt Eberflus said that, he said that they're going to improve the pass rush and don't necessarily just assume it's going to be off the edge. It could be, interior and inside guys. And that's a trend with the NFL. You see a lot of these big guys now. Derek Brown just got paid, even though he's not really a pass rusher, but a lot of these inside defensive linemen are getting paid. The Chris Jones, the Matabukes, and all these guys, because they provide pressure to the quarterback. And in this scheme, that three technique is something that's vital, right? You already got the edge guy with Montez Sweat. You would love to got a speed guy opposite of him. If you don't fulfill that, at least get some guy in inside. And now you got, two guys there, and you can maybe mix and match on the outside until you can fill that need, whether it's next year in the draft, free agency, so on and so forth. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it's a need. Is it as big as a need as receiver? I mean, is receiver a huge need now as much as it was prior to the season? I mean, we got Keenan Allen. That's a good start. You do need a receiver as well. So if you don't go receiver that first pick, you go for a defensive guy, for example, the 75th pick could be a nice receiver sitting out there. And this is a deep receiving class, and you could get a nice player there at 75 as well. So, and also keep in mind, there are some free agents out there. Tyler Boyd, I believe, is still out there, a nice third down kind of option there, a veteran you can bring in to kind of fill in and be a stopgap here as well. So, we'll see how all this all turns out, but edge, defensive alignment, and defense tackle and edge are still for me a priority. Receiver might be maybe a 1A or 1B.
Okay. Given that we got even more questions coming in regarding the defensive tackle position, why don't we switch up our show rundown, Danny, and start with the defensive tackles. The next question was from Cornelius, and he's asking who is the best defensive tackle in this draft. So why don't we just get to your top 10 list? Let's not keep anyone waiting anymore. I have a list here, and at the top, you got a guy named Byron Murphy from Texas. Tell us about him.
So going in, and obviously, the last couple of years, last couple of drafts, Eberflus and Ryan Poles, they've told us what they like in a defensive lineman, whether it's an edge guy, whether it's an interior guy. They want guys they have height, they have size, they have length, right? And they have athletic ability, and they're violent. Now, Byron Murphy's my top guy coming into this draft. He might not have fit all those criteria, but he fills a lot of them, okay? The one thing I'd say he's missing is the height, all right? 6 feet, 297. Murphy, measured it at 32 3/8 arm length, right in that ballpark in terms of where that cutoff is for Eberflus and company. A 1-year starter at Texas, started 16 of 39 games this past year. Was a 2023 Big 12 defensive lineman of the year, had 5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss. And for me, when I put the tape on with him, his positives kind of jump off the screen. Squatty, powerful, and sudden defensive tackle that comes off the ball low with natural leverage. Well-distributed body mass, possesses a quick first step, lateral agility, and natural bend. Good eyes and instincts to locate the ball quickly and knife through the backfield. Active hands to play off blocks, displays violence in those hands as well. Very good balance, quickness, and movement skill, and is seldomly on the ground. Now, that's like the thing when you see the defensive lineman. You want to make sure they maintain their feet at around the line of scrimmage. Can dig his heels into the dirt and neutralize the double team. Flattens down the line of scrimmage, makes plays, filling in those run lanes and making those tackles. When allowed to rush upfield, they played in a two gap scheme there at Texas. So a lot of times you didn't see his pass rushing prowess. But when he was allowed to rush upfield, he possesses that suddenness, the upfield burst to be a one gap penetrator. Utilizes a rip under move along with his lower body strength to be able to bully his way into the quarterback. So those are his pass rush abilities there. So on the downside, in terms of some things that I knocked him on or kind of lowered his grade on the short side, again, we talked about it earlier, Eberflus likes those guys 6'3" and taller, even in the middle there, right? He's only 6 feet tall, 297. The other question I have is, and some scouts have the same question is, does his frame have more room to add size? Is he maxed out at 297? Can he go 305? Or, what's his max at that type of frame? He can be engulfed and washed away by bigger bodies on double teams. So that's something that you have to keep an eye on there as well. And for me, with him, though, one thing I really noticed was he wears down in the fourth quarter. And, in terms of, he does play in the South, a little bit more heat out there, humidity, so on and so forth. But you notice a lot in terms not of his effort at the line of scrimmage, but more in sort of his pursuit. Fourth quarter, late fourth quarter, he's not all of a sudden he's not pursuing as hard he was on those backside, runs or chasing the running back to the perimeter or even chasing downfield, making plays. Those are some things you knock. So you got to take a look and see, stamina. Again, 1 year starter, something that kind of does a little worry you a little bit, but the ability to be able to be a penetrator, he can wrap up and be violent at the line of scrimmage, and again. Doesn't necessarily fit the criteria that like Eberflus likes, but just the ability to be a disruptor at the line of scrimmage and both the run game and the passing game is why he became number one on my list.
Dane Brugler, our barroom friend, he does the Beast over at The Athletic, probably the best draft guide out there without a doubt. He wrote about him today that he comps to Grady Jarrett. Would you agree with that comp?
Yeah, I mean, they're in the same ballpark in terms of height. I mean, they're both are 6 feet. I think Jared might be a little bit bigger in terms of weight. But yeah, I mean, that initial quickness. Jared obviously has been a tremendous player for Atlanta. That quick first step upfield penetrator. Again, I think if allowed or put in the proper scheme, I think Murphy would have some of the same ability in terms of as a pass rusher. And when projecting him at the next level, and especially in this type of a defense, I think you could be a guy that gets you 8 to 10 sacks. Right away in terms of, his rookie campaign. So he's got that type of first step quickness, that upfield burst, and that ability. And again, the hand usage, he's got to maybe, continue to work on his pass rush technique overall, but he's got the swim move, the rip, and again, the lower body power to just kind of get in that on the outside shoulder of the guard or center and just bully his way into the backfield. Even if he doesn't get the sack, his ability to get back there and have the quarterback move his launch, point or angle, might funnel him to his defensive line mates down at the other side and allow them to make a tackle. So, he's a guy that could potentially be a disruptor in the middle of defense. I think that's what the Bears need.
Tooch, I'll get to your questions momentarily, and we've got questions regarding Zach Pickens and Cliff asking, I'm assuming the Bears are looking at a 3-tech rather than a nose. So let me do this, Danny. Let me pull up the Bears roster as it's listed on the website right now, and let's look at this defensive line group. There's some good players here, but there's some needs. Andrew Billings, of course, is your nose tackle, signed to an extension late last season or early this offseason. Byron Cowart right now is the backup 3-tech to Gervon Dexter. There was another question in the chat bringing up that Montez Sweat was on Chris Long's podcast, and Montez says he'd rather see the Bears draft an outside pass rusher because he thinks Gervon Dexter is going to make a big jump this season. Jacob Martin, do you know anything about him? He is a second-year man out of Temple? I don't really know anything about Jacob.
Yeah, he's a guy that's been a pass rush, quote-unquote, pass rush specialist throughout his career. He had a brief stint of coffee with the Texans there with Lovie Smith, I believe. And he's a guy that brings some of that speed off the edge. You see at 6'2", 242. But again, he's a guy that's if anything, he's probably just a designated pass rusher at this point, not a guy that can be a down in and down out defensive end. So I think he's an intriguing guy. He's been on a couple teams. I believe this is his seventh or eighth season in the league. So he's a guy that, modest numbers where he's been, but again, brings some of that pressure off the edge. And I believe he did have one season with the Texans where he had, pretty good. I think he had like 5 or 6 sacks, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So that might have been a Lovie Smith year. But again, he's a guy that is just someone there I think might be a camp body right now if you don't get someone that's better than him there to improve. Now, they do have the kid that they picked up last year from the Colts. I believe it was Kareem Martin, the edge guy. So he was on a practice squad. That's a guy that they used that first overall claim on him. I think he's still on the practice squad, I believe. So he's a guy they might have some plans for there as well. But I think what they're going to do is I think they're going to go into this draft and say, all right, we're going to be open-minded. They're Kareem, I'm sorry. So I think they're going to go into the draft. They're going to be open-minded. They're going to say, hey, listen, we need to improve our pass rush, whether it's an inside guy or it's an outside edge guy. Now, I think we all would agree. I think we prefer an edge guy. But we've gone through the list of edge, and the list of defensive tackles is not that much better, right? There are by the time we get into this list here, there's going to be guys that are not first second day guys you have to push back into the later portion of day 3. Again, with only 4 picks as of today, it's going to be limited in terms of how they can pick and choose. So, they may have to, if given an opportunity to get the edge guy, might go there, and then just kind of fill in the blanks here with the defensive lineman. Again, expecting those 2 young guys to make that next step, right? Gervon Dexter, we saw him come on, and then the last season, I think that was again another player that benefited from the Tez effect, right? The Montez Sweat, when he came over, he got better. We talked about earlier, Justin Jones getting better. That parlayed him into a $30 million contract with the Arizona Cardinals. So I think these young guys, Pickens was a guy, if you guys remember last year's draft, I was really high on. The fact that they got him in the 3rd round, I think was a pretty good bargain, pretty good deal. Obviously, he didn't come on as quick as Dexter did. So I think, to answer Cliff your question, I think Pickens is your 3 technique. I think Dexter, in a perfect world, Dexter is your 1 technique, and I think Billings backs them up. Now, if I'm going for a defensive lineman, I want a guy that's going to be a 3 technique. I want a guy that's come in and provide pressure. That's something that Eberflus has already said. He wants to improve the pass rush, whether it's an inside guy or an outside guy. And if you're an inside guy, usually that's a 3 technique in this defensive scheme.
Indeed. Good stuff, Danny. And Tooch had an interesting question. You kind of covered it a little bit at the very top of the show. He writes, Eberflus had DeForest Buckner in Indianapolis, who's around 6'4", like Dexter. Does Eberflus prefer his defensive tackles with more length than guys like Byron Murphy, who you just profiled?
He does. And that's why I said in the beginning that he's a guy that likes those 6'3" and taller, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", with length, right? 34, 33-inch arm length. And that's what he wants. And he wants big, lean guys with length that can be force at the line of scrimmage and also get into the backfield. So that's why I think Zach Pickens is a guy to keep an eye on. Zach really intrigued me last year, going to last year's draft. I'm going through this list, and again, it's not a great deep list. The first couple of guys that I'm really excited about in terms of what they provide as a pass rush might not fit the ideal height, weight, size of an Eberflus defense. But if you go over just of overall talent, these are the guys that have produced and have shown the talent consistently throughout their collegiate career. So that's why they took the couple of spots. Later on this list, we're going to start digging into some guys that have some of those traits, might not have put it all together in terms of collegiate, their stats and all that stuff. But it might have something there you see on tape where you can get in there. And if you're Eberflus and a defensive staff, say, all right, this guy's got my height, this guy's got my length, this guy's got the size. We see flashes. Now let's just get him coached up so we can see those flashes on a more consistent basis. Some of those guys we'll cover later on in the draft. But again, those are going to be guys that probably in the day 3 of the draft. And right now, as it stands, the Bears only have 1 day 3 pick.
Very good. All right, let's get to number 2 on your list. And it's the guy from Illinois who I fell in love with this season. We saw more than a handful of Illinois games, and the defensive tackle there, Jerzon Newton. I don't want to get into hyperbole here, but there were times where he reminded me a little bit of Aaron Donald. So like a little baby Aaron Donald. He's about the same size. You got him at number 2.
Wow.
Tell me what
that's hyperbole there.
I know. I know.
That's hyperbole there, Aldo.
Okay.
Well, Jerzon Newton, he's my number 2 guy. Again, another guy that doesn't quite fit the bill there in terms of size. He's only 6'2", came in at 304, has 32 3/8 arm length. A 3-star high school recruit coming out of Florida. Has played actually D-line and running back at Florida, so that's the type of athletic ability he's got. A 3-year starter at Illinois, this past season was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, and he's a team captain, so he's got some leadership there as well. His positives. He's got squatty, sudden, quick-twitched interior defensive lineman. Very athletic, possessing the good lateral quickness and agility. Plays with good balance and natural knee bend. Keeps his feet at or around the line of scrimmage with bodies everywhere. Has a burst or a second gear that he displays when he gets in close and closes in on the quarterback. Very good functional football playing instincts. Locates the ball quickly and runs to it. Feels blocking pressures and reacts. Quick and sudden at the snap makes him capable of shooting the gap and penetrating into the backfield. Foot quickness and agility allow him to loop and stunt around the edge and provide pressure. This guy's very good in terms of those stunts and those defensive games up front because of his quickness, his mobility in terms of coming around the edge and providing some pressure. Displays good use of hands to be able to use a swim move, a rip move, a swipe to be able to free himself from blockers. Team captain. This also guy has got 4 blocks in his career, so he could provide some special teams, benefit there as well. The negatives, something similar to what we talked about with Byron Murphy, right? Doesn't possess the ideal height, fear is, could he be maxed out in terms of his frame? Would adding more weight to him kind of stress out his body? Can fall off some tackles, unable to secure and wrap up. He's got to be able to finish better at the next level. Anchor can be moved. He can be washed down and overpowered at the point of attack. So again, his biggest benefit, or his biggest strength, I should say, is his twitchiness. He's a quick twitch, traditional that we would think about growing up in the days of Urlacher and Levy Smith and those guys, the quick twitch 3 technique. Murphy and Newton, to more of an extent, have that ability. Those are the guys that we are accustomed to seeing here in Chicago when we play this 4-man front with the 3 technique. However, Eberflus and company, and they like we talked about earlier, they like those bigger, taller guys. He doesn't fit the bill. However, but with his quickness and his ability to get into the backfield, could these guys, if they're available, if they trade down, obviously, or maybe pick up a second round pick. I think Newton's going to go in the second round. I think if they can get a second round pick somehow, some way, he could be a possibility there for them. Before I get into my next guy, he was a guy that I had initially thought about putting him at number 3, and one of the reasons why is he had a foot injury in March. They found I think it was a broken bone, had surgery, hasn't been able to work out. And one thing I learned, just kind of, as you go through scouting, you kind of pick things up, and you saw it last year with Tyree Wilson. The guy I love, the edge guy from Texas Tech that went to the Raiders. He had a foot injury, a broken bone in midseason. Actually, it was like tail end of the season, and he didn't recover, and it wasn't the same until later portion, 3 quarters into his season. So, big guys with broken bones in their feet, kind of tend to scare me a little bit. So his medical, that's got to be big for Newton. So that's why I think a lot of mocks have him in the first round. I think that might drop him into the second round. Hopefully it's not serious. Hopefully it's healing properly, and I think he goes in the second round. But that quickness, that first step quickness, I think that's what has you infatuated with him, Aldo, is his ability to penetrate, be a one-gap penetrator. I think that really is what draws you to Johnny Newton.
Yeah, he had to decline an invitation to the Senior Bowl because of this fracture. He has not been able to test, and so clearly that's, scouts and teams are just maybe going to downgrade him a little bit because of those concerns. But doctors will do the medicals, and if he's clear, then he should be, the tape should basically tell us who this guy is, plus the one-on-one interviews. The other thing about him, Danny, speaking of injuries, despite that, he did not miss an entire game in any of his 4 seasons at Illinois. And in his senior year, he played 62.4 snaps per game. That's practically 100% of the defensive snaps. I think that once he gets to the NFL, they'll keep him fresher on a rotation, and that quickness that he has is going to make him even more valuable, or I should say more effective and efficient, as opposed to how Illinois used them, which was to run them down into the ground. So I like him.
Sure. Yep, I agree.
Right. This next guy that you're going to highlight is someone that Brandon Lawson on the Gabriel Talks Football show, said, how come people aren't loving this guy? But you are. Take it away with your number 3.
Yeah, I love this guy, and I think one of the reasons why people don't love this guy is people haven't seen him play that much. I mean, I'm talking about Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State. Came in at 6'3", 299 at his pro day. Was up 9 pounds from the combine, where he came in at 290, 33.5-inch arm length. He's played 28 games with only 11 starts. Right, he's only got 45 career tackles. 6 quarterback sacks. He's just a part-time starter at Ohio State. 5 starts in 2022 and 7 starts this past season. And this is one where I wish I had access to the Ohio State coaching staff and find out a little bit more in terms of why Michael Hall wasn't getting on the football field on a more consistent basis. So, I mean, we've seen guys get drafted who haven't been full-time starters. The kid from Iowa last year, and right now I'm Van Ness, Lucas Van Ness, that went to the Packers. He wasn't a full-time starter, I believe, at Iowa. So there could be reasons why. But for me, the production has not been great statistically for Michael Hall, but for me, that there's an old saying that the tape doesn't lie, right? And you put on the tape, and you just can't get your eyes off of this kid. And the things I love about him, first of all, athletically, he ran a 4.75 40 with a 1.65 10-yard split. I believe, you brought him up earlier, Aldo. Aaron Donald if I'm not mistaken, ran a 1.62 or 1.63 10-yard split at his pro day. So this guy ran a 1.65. So this guy's right there in a 33-inch vertical, 9'3" broad jump. So he's got some of that lower body power, lower body explosion. The things I love about this kid: size, the athletic. He's an athletic mover, possesses tremendous lower body explosiveness, as I just highlighted here with some of his test numbers there. Has that short area speed and burst to close in, quick to engage post snap, and plays with a natural knee bend and balance, keeps his feet among piles of bodies around on the ground, solid strength versus individual blocks at the point of attack, can press off blocks and man a gap. Solid awareness and positional instincts, feels of blocking, can peek to quickly locate the football. Lateral agility and quickness to slip backs and flash in the hole to veer off the running backs. Strong and effortful to flatten down the line of scrimmage and make plays in pursuit. Possesses the foot speed to chase down the line, either sideline. He can cut off angles for out-and-bound carriers. Very good initial upfield burst off the ball to pierce gaps. Explodes out of his stance as a pass rusher. Quick, active hands. Will see a club, a rip, a swim move to free himself from blockers and penetrate upfield into the gap. Can lock out his arms and press offensive guards to convert speed to power and bully them into the backfield. Max and continuous effort on his pass rush. Does not throttle down if his first effort is stopped or thwarted. Draws multiple blockers and extra attention. You put on the LSU. I'm sorry, I had the Penn State game. They gave him a guard and a running back to block. He ate up the Michigan offensive line, the two-time Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. They had trouble blocking him one-on-one as well. So, this guy, you put on the tape, and he is just making plays all over the football field, and you're wondering, how the hell did he only had 11 starts in the last 2 seasons? Some of the negatives, though. I mean, he is a guy that hasn't played that much, not dynamically hipped. So he has some change of direction issues in the open field. Can be engulfed and moved into a different area code by double teams. While a pass rush skill set is evident, he's still not a finished product. He can still get better in terms of developing a game plan, developing his repertoire, and becoming a full finished pass rusher. And in terms of limited experience, again, only 11 starts. What's the deal there? So he has a guy doesn't have that much tread on his tires, but he's a dynamic, powerful, athletic defensive lineman that you can plug and play in this defensive line. In my opinion, again, 6'3", 299, 33 plus inch arm lengths. This is a guy that is now hitting those thresholds, those physical thresholds that Eberflus likes. And again, if you can get this guy, unfortunately, I think he goes second round. And right now you don't have a second round pick, so I don't think they can get hands on him. Obviously, the first round, unless you trade down, like way down in the first round, maybe take a flyer in the late half of that first round. But I just don't think currently the way they're set up that they're going to have a chance to get on. But this is a guy that I think even of Murphy and Newton. The reason I had hit Murphy up top and Newton is because they've been more productive and have more career starts. But I mean, if I was really considering making him number 2, making Hall number 2 and Newton number 3 because of that foot injury, I'm thinking, all right, if Newton can't get on the field for how long? But I just end up going with the production, and I'm going with the guy who's been consistent throughout his career and put Newton number 2. But this kid, Michael Hall Jr., is going to be a force, in my opinion, to reckon with at the next level.
Well, but the irony of what you're saying is that this is according to Dane Brugler, is that Hall averaged only 24 snaps per game. Newton averaged twice the amount, and Hall also battled several nagging injuries over his career, and therefore that's why he averaged 28 snaps per game. So what concerns me about Michael Hall Jr. is the injury history, and can he stay active game in and game out for the Chicago Bears if he becomes one? One scout told Dan Brugler, it might be best for the guy to drop 30 pounds, 40 pounds, and become an outside linebacker because he's got the feet to cover people, but may not have, the ability to stay healthy if he's playing in the trenches game in and game out, snap in and snap out.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I heard about he missed a game here and there. I didn't know what the injuries were specifically, but I mean, if he's a guy that has issues staying healthy, I mean, and NFL, they have the best resources in terms of trainers and physical therapists and all that stuff. I mean, they can put him into a plan here. It could be a lot of things. It could be a diet. It could be the way, the amount of rest he gets, the amount of times he recovers his body or allows his body to recover. A lot of different things that could be leading to some of those injuries. And again, if you can get a hold, this is why I wanted to be hopefully access to some of the inside knowledge on Michael Hall Jr., because I'm like, why is he not there? And Dane does a good job pointing out there is that, some of those nagging injuries, maybe his inability to be, down in and down out, run stuffer could have been something that Ohio State side that to put him on the bench, or maybe they are trying to limit his reps and keep him healthy for the long season. So, but just putting on his tape and just watching him in terms of technique, in terms of quickness, agility, power, burst. I mean, this is a guy that I think fulfills everything you would look for in the middle of a defensive line. And to the earlier point, I wouldn't have him drop weight and be an outside linebacker. I love the way he handles himself inside. Again, he's a guy that it takes on blockers, stands his ground, he's got penetrates and gets up the field. I think just, he gets a chance, just got to stay healthy and get rid of those nicks and bruises. I think that way you can be a guy that can become a force at the next level. He could be a guy we go back in 3 years for, like, how did this guy last until the second round, possibly,
Yeah. All right, let's get to number 4, and he is Mason Smith out of LSU. They got a lot of guys turning pro this year, and Mason Smith is a good one at the defensive tackle position. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, this is another guy that you put on a tape, and his size, you cannot miss it. And he wears number 0, so he sticks out even more. 6'5", 306, 35-inch arms, 84, almost 85-inch, a wingspan, a 5-star high school recruit, a 2-year starter at LSU, played 17, started 17 games in 22 games, had a solid freshman campaign in 2021, 5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. And then unfortunately in 2022, missed the entire season as he tore his ACL in the opener versus Florida State. He's dealt with injuries before as well. 2021 missed a couple of games with a shoulder injury. So that kind of threw him back. 2023 last year, he came back. Numbers were modest at 2.5 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss. And I think a lot of, if you put on his tape, he looked a little bit more out of shape a little bit than he was his freshman year. Again, recovering from an ACL, that could be something that he had to deal with. And we all know that that's about like a year recovery time for those ACLs. And he's a bigger guy. At his pro day had a 5.01 40-yard dash, 1.75 10-yard split, 31-inch vertical, 9-foot broad jump, 7.62 3-cone for a guy at 6'5", 306 is very, very freaking impressive. He was suspended for the opener this past year for taking improper benefits, but that's, who knows what that was about. But just wanted to bring that up here for context. In terms of his positives, again, athletic, big man with tremendous size, length, looks every bit the part. Frame is not, done yet filling out. This is a guy that can easily, in my opinion, add and be 315 and still have a nice trim fit, athletic frame. Solid off the snap, quickness and agility. Plays with a good wide base and is coordinated with his movement. Has good strength to press off blockers, lock out, and anchor. Can occupy blockers and become a force in the middle of a defensive line and allow your linebackers behind him to go ahead and eat. This is the guy that flashes the ability to penetrate gaps, has a nice swim move, and can disrupt the backfield. Keys and locates quickly post-snap. Predominantly a power rusher at this stage of his career. But this is a guy that he can simply just overpower blockers right now and just walk him back into the quarterback's lap. He's going to have to develop a pass rushing repertoire at the next level. But right now he just lives off the fact that he can just overpower guys and just bully them back into the backfield. On tape, one healthy, he saw him destroying a play by just basically just powering himself and willing himself into the backfield and having the running back veer off his path. And now he's going into the opposite direction, into the arms of his defensive line mate. So throwing that offense off a schedule. Length allows him to be able to corral ball carriers and engulf them. You're going to love him, Aldo. He's a short tackler at around the line of scrimmage. No one gets away from his long arms, and flashes a second gear to be able to track down running backs and close in on the football. Some of the issues I have with him: big guy, long legs, change of direction issues in his lower half, some stiff ankles, or what it looks like appears on tape. I'm not sure if that's something to do with the ACL. Still kind of recovering from that. Maybe something mentally. We'll see how that develops as he goes along. Tends to play tall and with a narrow base. So a lot of these guys that they get their pad levels elevated, they lose their leverage and they get turned and washed out. Gap integrity is something he's going to have to be able to kind of learn here at the next level. Something where coaches going to have to kind of drill into him. You see him a lot of times try to make a play and be a Superman and loses his gap integrity, leaving the defense vulnerable in that area and then allowing a big run or a big play to happen in the area he just vacated. So that's going to be something he's got to keep in mind at the next level. But again, that's coaching for me. And again, just a raw pass rusher, got to develop them there as well. So this guy fits that criteria. I can see him, and with him, Pickens, Gravon Dexter, and Billings, these four monsters, in the middle of the defensive line. Again, raw, athletic, gifted, got to coach him up. But man, if you hit on this kid and you get him to play to his full potential, you got three guys in there that are beasts. And I said, they would allow the linebackers to eat, right? So everything behind them, the Tremaine Edmonds and all the guys can come in and just crash down and run to the make plays at the running back or at the line of scrimmage, because these guys are occupying blockers. So because of that size, that girth, that potential, he's number 4 here on my list. You're on mute.
Sorry. And Danny is talking about Mason Smith, number 4 on his list from LSU. Before that, it was Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State. At number 2, he's got Jerzon Newton out of Illinois. And number 1, he's got Byron Murphy out of Texas. So let's now go to number 5. And again, let me stress, these are defensive tackles who Danny thinks are the best fits for the Chicago Bears defensive line and the scheme that they run. Am I saying that correctly, Danny?
Yep. This is just strictly scouting for the Bears and their defensive. This is not overall general defensive tackle. This is specifically, I'm going in, all these position groups that I scout, these top 10 lists are just specifically for the Bears and their schemes and guys that I think fit this football team.
So please keep that in mind as we go to number 5. It is Dwayne Carter out of Duke. Tell us why you like him.
Yeah, this guy caught my eye at the Senior Bowl. And, I hadn't been watching a lot of Duke football this past year, but went to the Senior Bowl, saw this guy just kind of controlling it at the line of scrimmage there. Goes to the combine, comes in at a 6'2", 303 with 33-inch arms, had a 4.99 40, a 172 10-yard split, 32-inch vertical, and 9'1" broad jump. And again, you guys might be saying, well, why are these so important? Because that shows a guy at 300 pounds that can jump 32 inches vertically. That shows some power, some lower body explosiveness. And this is why I point these out. The 172 10-yard splits is more important to me than the overall 40-yard dash time. But again, this is a guy that comes from a football family, terrific person on and off the field, a 3-time team captain, which is the first time that has ever happened in school history. So, and he's got, 4 forced fumbles last year, 7 forced fumbles for his career. So this is the guy that gets the football, rips it out and gets it away from the running back and from the quarterback. So again, numbers, the last couple of years we're probably better off than this year. I only had 1 sack this year, just 3.5 tackles for loss. But if you go ahead and break his tape down, again, the size I love, the agility for a 300-pounder, carries his weight well and demonstrates lateral agility, solid post-snap quickness and timing at the line of scrimmage, throws his hips into the hole and can get underneath blocks, can work laterally down the line of scrimmage and corkscrew himself into the gap to stuff running backs. If he can sustain his leverage, which means keeping his pads low, he's the guy that can maintain his ground and help plug up run lanes. Plays on his feet with quickness, balance, and agility. Good instincts to be able to react to blocking pressures and sniff out screens. Can power rush and bully himself into the backfield. Can be a disruptor inside when attacking the gaps. Will fire off the snap and has that swim move along with a spin move to be able to get him, between blockers and provide some pressure on the quarterback. 3-year team captain. You love seeing that brings some leadership there. And he's got a high football character, is all you heard about this guy coming off from the Senior Bowl. In terms of some of the things that, might, knock him here, undersized in terms of height, lacks the sustained power at the point of attack, gets turned and tossed and moved off his spot versus a double team. So you got to get better in terms of maintaining that position there at the line of scrimmage. Needs a secondary counter to be able to free himself from blocks. Saw a few times where, he was just unable to detach from blockers. Needs to work on maintaining leverage, and proper pad levels. And potential is there to be a pass rush threat, but this is an area that needs to be coached up. And again, we talked about it with with some of the other guys here previously that he shows potential. He's talked about a nice spin move. He's talked about his ability, a swim move to get into the gaps. But he's got to continue to work on that skill set and develop it here at the next level. But I'm telling you, he might not be a 3 technique, might be more of a 1 technique here. But the effort, the high football character, the team captain, and everything that he shows on tape. This is a guy that really, really intrigues me. I think we did a mock draft 2 weeks ago, our last show. Was he sitting there in the 3rd round? We picked him up, or I forgot where it was, a 4th round. And I saw him up there, and he just kind of like lit up. I like this guy. I like him a lot. Again, 6'2", doesn't fit the height criteria that we were talking about earlier with Eberflus, but man, if you could fit him in there, I think this is a guy that could be very productive for you. Again, it might be more of a 1 technique than a 3 technique, but again, a guy that could be coming in and be a contributor right away. You're on mute. That's twice. It's $10.
$10 indeed. This guy is coming into the league as one of the older players. He'll be 24 during the season. You don't have a concern about that, right?
I don't. No, he's probably going to go day 3, maybe day 2, and he's going to be a 4-year contract. So a lot of these guys coming in, as long as they get a second contract, they're considered good draft picks. So we'll see it when he gets into the second contract where he's at in terms of that. But yeah, I'm not worried. He doesn't have a history in terms of injuries and all that stuff. So I think he's a guy that, again, not a 1st rounder guy, not a 2nd round guy, maybe late 3rd round, early 4th round areas is where you're going to see this kid go.
I think, the only concern, I too don't have a concern regarding age. The only concern that I had is that, as you mentioned in your report, he had 2 very productive years. In 2021, he had 7.5 sacks. In 2022, he had 11 sacks. Excuse me, I take that back. Those were tackles for losses. And what he had in terms of sacks those 2 years was 4.5 in 21 and 5.5 in 22. But Dwayne Carter last year, he really fell off. 3.5 tackles for loss and only 1 sack. And I've been trying to locate, some information as to why there was that big fall off, but nobody seems to have a reason why, whether it was an injury or anything. So you haven't heard anything either, huh?
No, the only thing is and I should know this, but I want to say there was a coaching change, and I'm not 100% sure at Duke, and that could be something that kind of led to issue. There are a lot of things that go on in the background that we don't know about, and this is why I've said it multiple times, that background information is so important, getting into those facilities, talking with these coaches, talking with the staff about why the production fell, what happened. That nugget that Dane had about Michael Hall Jr. in terms of the injuries and the coaching staff maybe trying to limit some of his injuries, some of his exposure. That's a good nugget. That stuff like that you get by being able to get into the schools and making those visits. That's why these school visits are very, very important during the year. So yeah, I don't know exactly why the production fell, but I put on some of that 22 tape, and I saw same effort. I saw again his ability to be able to be on a force in the middle of the defensive line. So I effort wasn't lacking. It wasn't for lack of effort. So depends on everything fall around him and all that stuff. So, but there are definitely things that you can go ahead and kind of look into. But I just look at what he's done on tape. I don't look at what he did at the Senior Bowl, and obviously then I go to the numbers that he posts at this combine and the pro days. BAWJ just joined us. He goes, "Hey guys, why tackles when defensive end is the biggest need?" And I don't argue with you on that. And as Tooch pointed out, we already did a show on defensive ends, but also let's remember what Matt Eberflus himself said at the combine. He says, "I don't care where we get the pass rush help, whether it's an inside man, a defensive tackle, or an outside man, we want to add to that pass rushing help." And so that's the lens that we should be looking at this through. And again, Danny has tailored these picks for guys who are like that, and which is why he's prioritized them. And again, it's Byron Murphy at the top, Jerzon Newton at number 2, Michael Hall Jr. at number 3, number 4, Mason Smith, number 5, he just finished talking about, Dwayne Carter, and number 6 is Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. Yeah, Chris Jenkins from Michigan, obviously playing the national championship team last year. NFL bloodlines, father Chris Jenkins played in the NFL with the Panthers and is a 4-time All-Pro, so you love that, that about him. 2-year starter in Michigan, 44 games, 32 starts. Has started at multiple positions. Started at defensive tackle and a defensive end at Michigan. a two-time All Big Ten selection, a team captain last year. Last year, again, numbers here are modest: 2.5 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss. But again, he was part of a bigger rotation there with Michigan. But his impact, if you put on his tape, you can see him make an impact there on the football field. 6'3", 299, 34-inch arm length, 170 10-yard split with a 9.7 broad jump, 29 reps on the bench. So for me, with Chris Jenkins, the size and the length are pluses. Moves extremely well for a big man and plays with outstanding balance and body control. Strong and powerful to be able to rip, tug, and cross the face mask of a blocker. Terrific instincts to be able to feel blocking, pressure, and then quickly locate the ball post snap. Can get what I call skinny and slip through gaps to affect the run play design. Outstanding grip strength to be able to lock out, press, and control blockers. Again, remember, in Michigan, they play a lot of two-gapping scheme, right? This is the guy that wasn't necessarily asked to go ahead and hit those gaps and get upfield. So that's going to change here at the next level. So a lot of this is projection, seeing some of the athletic traits and seeing how he would fit in his next system. Displays a nice spin move, as his counter rush to the pass blocking. Plays with abandon and keeps working to get to the quarterback. High effort player who will chase down, backside and perimeter and downfield as well. For me, this is a guy, guys, I think has a chance to be a better pass rusher at the NFL level than at the collegiate level. And one of the reasons why I just talked about it, he was asked to do a lot of two gapping. If you guys know, it's basically your first step is, kind of maintain your balance, see what's going on either side of the offensive line in front of you. Is it a run play? Are they coming your gap? What you got they coming at? And then attack that. Well, here at this level, at least especially with the Bears, it's going to be more of that one gap hit up, first quick step, upfield and burst and get through and get to the quarterback. So I think this is where, my opinion, Jenkins can be a better pass rusher here at the next level. Some of his downsides or negatives, if you want to call them, we'd like to see him get stronger and be more of a wall at the point of attack. We talked about Mason Smith being a wall and allowing his linebackers to come eat. Chris Jenkins, I want to see him play a little bit more bigger at the line of scrimmage. There are times where, blockers were able to kind of reestablish the line of scrimmage and turn him, which is, we want to see that consistently on tape. Could stand to continue refining the pass rush skill, the repertoire, and getting a better understanding of the art of the pass rush. Now, again, that might be a little bit of unfair criticism. We talked about the scheme that he was playing in and what he was asked to do. His dad is a 4-time All-Pro. I don't think he has any issues in terms of learning how to pass rush. So I think, again, this is something that he was kind of limited. And we hear a lot with Michigan, right? We hear J.J. McCarthy was limited by the offense, and this, in my opinion, this kid was limited in terms of what he produced in terms of sack numbers by the defensive scheme they ran in Michigan. But hey, they won a national championship. No one's going to complain. So, and the other thing I would like him to do is kind of do a better chance of utilizing his hands to be able to free himself from blocks and move at a more quicker rate, be able to shut quicker at the point of attack. So things that could be coached up. But again, the size, the athletic ability, the frame is something that in a team captain. So, and obviously the bloodlines are something that really do intrigue me by Chris Jenkins. And again, I'm more of projecting here in terms of him, how he can develop at the next level. But I think he's got a chance to be either a 1 or most likely a 3 technique if the Bears were to draft him.
His nickname at Michigan was the Mutant because of his athletic look. So that's pretty interesting. Chris Jenkins.
I talked about it. Played multiple spots. Played defensive end. Played nose tackle. Played defensive tackle as well. So he's a guy that they used up and down that line of scrimmage there in Michigan. I believe there was a couple of plays I saw him standing up on it in a 2-point stance on the outside as well. So there are a lot of different things there at the University of Michigan for that defensive front.
Now, that's an important point to keep in mind because we know how this Bears regime loves versatility in their players, particularly those trench players, offensive line and defensive line. All right, let's move on to number 7 and Johnny
Santucci. This is the guy I know you're going to love pronouncing this guy's name.
Yeah, right. Johnny Santucci just posted that he really likes this guy and Jenkins, and it's rookie Orhororo.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
Great job. I believe it's Orhoro. I believe that's how I pronounce it. But I'm gonna let you be the
I think you're right.
But his first name is Rook, so it's Rook Orhoro. Again, this is a very intriguing kid here. Born in Nigeria, came to the U.S. at the age of 9, played predominantly basketball in high school, and only play football for like the last 1.5 to 2 years of his high school career. It's got bloodlines, a couple cousins in the NFL. Michael and I'm going to apologize because I should know his last name, but I'm going to butcher it. Michael Ojumudie. And Tooch, you out there, you know this guy, this Iowa cornerback that was on the Bears a couple seasons ago. He's his cousin, so he's got some NFL bloodlines there. 3-year starter for Clemson, 30 starts with 53 career games, 6'4", 294 is what he came in at the combine, 34-inch arms, 4.89 40, 1.67 10-yard split, which is phenomenal, 32-inch vertical, 9.8 broad jump, and also 29 reps on the bench. This is a kid for me is a great or good to good straight line athlete, right? He possesses a strong, durable frame with very little body fat. That's how I describe Aldo, very little body fat. Long first step, good, initial takeoff speed, solid strength at the point of attack, brings active and strong hands to the front line, battles with blockers, can jar tackles off balance with his hands. He has what I call knockback power. There's a video I tweeted out this week where there's a pulling guard, and he gets into him, and the pulling guard had no idea what the hell hit him. He went flying, and this guy must be 300 pounds, and he just went flying like he was a kid there. But he's got that big strong knockback power in his hands. Displays an ability to be able to disruptive in the backfield, using a club swipe move, pushing the quarterback off their spots, and then flushing a lot of the production over to his teammates. Can power and work his way through blockers and bring havoc to the offensive backfield. The negatives on him for me, average lateral agility, to go along with some lower body stiffness, not agile or twitchy. You can see some change of direction issues. Got a late start to football in high school. We talked about he was a basketball player predominantly. So you can see some of the positional instincts. The positional instincts are not there yet, right? Lacks the full complement of a pass rush repertoire. Will need coaching there. Lack of lower body fluidity can be noticed when he's asked to loop in stunts along the defensive front. And Eberflus does do a lot of stunts and loops, and he plays a lot of games there with his defensive lineman up front. So that might be something that the Bears might not like with this kid. Can get stuck on blocks and does not, shed quickly at the line of scrimmage. But again, these are things that you can coach up. Those traits, the athletic ability, the straight line athleticism is tremendous with this kid. Again, with that measurement, and again, more of a developmental type prospect. So he's a guy that you can bring in and kind of have, kind of coach up and maybe contribute, maybe midway through the season. Maybe he's more advanced. He's got 30 starts in college, so this guy has some collegiate experience. But again, the positional instincts, you can see some of the feel for the blocking isn't there yet. This is some time that maybe to take some time. But the athletic ability, and now again, guys, we're getting into day 3 here, and now we're picking traits, we're picking athletes, we're picking things that these guys bring that fit into the scheme that this coaching staff, projection-wise, could like.
Good stuff on him. Dane Brugler has his name phonetically written out, so I give it a try. O-Ro-Ro-Ro. O-Ro-Ro-Ro. The youngest of 7 children, as you mentioned, from Lagos, Nigeria. I saw that video that you posted on your X channel, which is at DSHIMON56. For those of you listening on audio podcast, D Shimon, Danny will occasionally post some video from his study sessions, and that block he put on that card I love it. I love it.
The ones that really, like, when you're sitting here and you're watching, all of a sudden you're like, what the hell did you just do? And that's those are the ones that are like, oh, I gotta show this one.
Indeed. All right, we move on now to number 8, and it is the young man from Alabama, Justin Eboigbe.
It's pronounced Eboigbe. Eboigbe. That's how it's pronounced. And again, this is a guy that seemingly I'm high on more than a lot of other people are in terms of the scouting community and everything else. Tell me, guys, if you heard this before, a 5-star high school recruit going to Alabama, right? He chose Alabama over like the likes of Georgia, Florida, Arkansas. So highly recruited kid out of high school. 2022, I'm sorry, suffered a neck injury that in the 5th game of the season, missed the remaining 2022 schedule. Came back this past year. This was his first year back, obviously from the injury. Put up his best year. Had 7 sacks, 11.5 tackles for loss, and became a first-team All-SEC member. And I think what it comes in at 5'18" in terms of 5.18. I'm sorry, and a 40-yard, 1.80 10-yard split. 6'4", 297 is his measurables. 33 3/8 arm, almost 34-inch arm length. I think what hurts this guy or what knocks him is a lot of guys see him as a tweener, and what I mean by that is Alabama had him playing, you know, their odd man front. They had him playing defensive end, right? So more of like a 5 technique, if you will. So I think, you know, teams see him as a base end. Some teams see him as a 4-3 base end. Some teams see him as a 5 technique and in a odd man front. I see him as a guy that can kick inside to be a defensive tackle in a 4-man front. All right. Is he a 3 technique? I'm not sure, but he's a guy that shows the ability to get in and penetrate. Possesses good size, arm length. We talked about earlier. Displays solid body mass along with a base strength to be able to stack the point, the line of scrimmage. You know, shows the ability to stack, shed, and locate. You know, when allowed to go hunt, display the short area burst to be able to beat blockers off the ball and get into those gaps. Can convert speed to power and bully interior offensive linemen into the backfield. You know, again, scheme versatile defender. This guy again played multiple techniques along the defensive front for Alabama. You know, if you go back to the Michigan game, you know, he's a guy that you know made some big plays there in terms of penetrating, getting to the backfield, dropping Blake Corum for a loss, or getting to JJ McCarthy and kind of forcing him to kind of rush his throw. So you know he showed out in those big games. Some of the negatives on him, again. Tweener, you know, is a guy that a lot of scouts or teams not sure where to line him up, what the best position is at. So this is more of a projection on my part. Not a twitched up athlete. You know, hip tightness shows up in his consistently high pad level. So he's got to be able to play with better pad level. Slow to redirect with marginal lateral agility. Needs to learn to be able how to use his hands to be better in terms of disengaging from blockers, expanding his pass rush repertoire. And that 2022 neck injury, obviously neck injuries are no joke. You know, that's something that cost him most of the season. And I think, you know, that's got to be cleared by the medical staff as well. So those are all things you have to take into effect here. But I think what's really hurting him is the fact that a lot of teams don't know in terms of, is he inside, is he outside? He's not quick enough and twitchy enough to be an edge guy in the next level. You know, is he big enough, strong enough to be able to maintain himself and be either a 3 technique or a 1 technique at the NFL level? I think that's what's hurting him. But again, we're talking about day 3 guys, right? And if you get this guy in, you know, he's got the pedigree, the 5-star recruit, you know, came back from a pretty serious injury, 7 sacks, 11.5 tackles for loss, you know, shows up in big games. So I think it comes from a good, you know, Power 5 conference and a big time school. So I think this is a guy you take a chance on if you have multiple picks. If Ryan, you know, Pohl is able to trade down and get some of those picks and take a chance to bring this guy in. He's got the size and the length that you like. So let's go ahead and let's see what he can do.
Bruce Ollie Walter Jordan asked us in the chat, can you attach rounds where you think this guy might come off the board? So
Justin?
Yeah. So what about Justin? You think he's a 5th or 6th rounder?
I think that's where you start talking about him. I think because of that tweener and not sure in terms of what he is, I think you're looking at the 5th round. So definitely day 3.
And what about Ororo?
Also day 3. I think he's a guy. I've heard some 3rd round on him. I think that might be a bit too rich, but you never know. You know, coaches fall in love with these guys and their traits, and they might think they can coach him up. So I say 3rd round, but you know, possibly 3rd round. But I think for my money, he's probably going to 4th
round. Jenkins and Carter, you probably think 3rd round on those 2 guys. Right?
Yeah, I think Carter for sure 3rd round. Jenkins could be 3rd round, maybe 4th round, but yeah, I would say 3rd or 4th.
All right, and Mason Smith is clearly you mentioned 2nd or 3rd rounder with them, right?
Yeah, Michael Hall, Mason Smith, and Newton, I think, are all 2nd rounders.
Excellent. All right, let's get on to number 9 on your list. An easier name for me to pronounce, Brandon Dorlus.
Yeah, we just talked about tweeners, right? And this is the ultimate tweener here at Brandon Dorlus. He's a guy, a 3-year starter at Oregon, a 3-time All Pac-12 first team member. He was used at all multiple positions at Oregon, right? He was used as an end, 4-3 end, hand in the ground. He was used as an outside linebacker, stood up in a 2-point stance, rushed off from there, was kicked inside a lot to a defensive tackle. And I think that's where I see him at. And again, I'm projecting him here as an inside defensive lineman. He came in at 6'3", 283 with 33 and a 1/4 inch arm length. He's got to add about 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, right? So you're looking at 293, 295 is what I would like him at. So he's got to get bigger, got to get stronger. 4'8", 540, 168 10-yard split, which is phenomenal, which shows some of that burst, some of that ability to get into the creases, into the gaps. You know, 30.5-inch vertical, 7.433 cone. Again, a guy that last year had 5 sacks, 6.5 tackles for loss. Fifth-year senior, only has 12 sacks for his career, so production hasn't always been there, but had 9 passes defensed. So I think that's something that you take a look at. Positives for me with Dorless, average size and length, but has a solid lateral agility and be able to burst to close. And that, again, we talked about that 1-6-8 10-yard split. Solid instincts in terms of feeling his blocks unfolding. Good football temperament. Plays hard and chases the ball. And this is a guy that was always barking. He's always encouraging his teammates. He was always there. Into the game. And when you watch his Oregon tape, solid quickness to be able to cross face the blockers and pierce into the gaps. Tough and competitive. Versatile, again, plays inside, can play some outside. Most likely for me, again, he's going to kick inside, probably to a 3 technique is where I see him at the next level, but he's got to add some weight. So on a negative side, speaking of weight, undersized for an interior defensive tackle, we'll need to add about 10 to 15 pounds of functional muscle. Lack of ball causes him to get washed out by double teams. Could stand to do a better job of coming to balance in open space. A lot of times you see him kind of being all over the place and overrunning the play and kind of, arms are flailing and everything like that. So got to be able to kind of control yourself and come to, into balance better in the open field. Again, has to develop a better counter move. There are a lot of times his initial thrust, his initial burst into the offensive lineman was stopped. He's got to be able to develop a counter, be able to get away from those guys, free himself up, and continue to go after the quarterback. So efforts there, motors there, athletic abilities there. It's just some development here and some projection in terms of kicking them inside. Some teams see him as a 4-3 base end, which could work for them, but for the Bears' sake, I see him more as a guy who kick inside, add some weight to him, be a 3 technique.
Very good. All right, let us go now to number 10. It is none other than Gabe Hall out of Baylor. Big guy.
Yeah, this is a guy, again, another I want to talk about in terms of, getting ready for the Senior Bowl. I saw his name on the roster. I put on his tape, and nothing really caught my eye in terms of other than his size. Right, production was minuscule at 2 sacks last year, 3.5 tackles for loss. But 2021 and 2022, he had 5 and 4.5 sacks respectively. 12.5 tackles for loss those 2 years. So he go back and dig into his back. Now I'm sorry, moving to the Senior Bowl. This is a guy that was making some hay there in terms of getting into the offensive lineman's chest, and he's got those long arms. He's 6'6", 34.5-inch arm length, 291. Talk about that profile we talked about earlier in the show in terms of what Eberflus and company like. This guy fits it to a T. 6'6", 34.5-inch arms, 291. A 172 10-yard split. Very impressive for a guy that big, that size. 5'03", 40-yard dash. 31.5-inch vertical, a 7.65 3-cone, which is pretty good for a guy this big with this lanky. 3-star high school recruit out of Texas. Competed in the state track meet in the shot put. Again, chose Baylor over schools like TCU, Texas Tech, Tennessee, Ole Miss, so on and so forth. A 3-year starter there at Baylor. Obviously his positives, size sticks out like a sore thumb. 6'6", 291, very long arms. Athletic frame with room to grow. He's 291 right now. I could see him being an easy 310 and still being the athletic thin frame that he's got right now. Can be an opposing figure inside with the ability to build good shock in his hands. Size and length poses a problem when he wins inside leverage on offensive guards. With a power swim move to be able to flash in the hole, and he presents a wall for the ball carrier. Brandishes a powerful club move to be able to swap blockers out of his way. And he's got a strong arm over swim move to help him penetrate into the backfield. When he locks down, he plays long. This is a guy that can control blockers. He can walk them back into the quarterback's lap. Size and arm length can pose a big problem for quarterbacks and being able to get them up and getting into his passing lanes and maybe tipping some balls at the line of scrimmage. Negatives: does not possess the elite explosion you're looking for inside penetrator. Will need to get stronger to maintain his ground at the NFL level. Gets in trouble when he comes up out of his stance, right? Too tall, getting overwhelmed by the double team. These tall guys got to be able to play with better pad levels at this next level. Could stand to play with a little more consistent knee bend. Can be a tick late to get the football post snap. And a long strider who struggles to make sharp cuts. With quick change of direction plays, you can see him kind of playing out of control and struggling to come to balance there. So again, this is a guy that intrigues me because of the way he went ahead and competed at the Senior Bowl, put up impressive numbers at the combine. He's got the size and the length and dimensions that Eberflus and company like. So I think this is a guy, again, If he's probably in the 5th, 6th round range for me, and that's mainly because of the fact that, he hasn't really produced on a consistent basis at Baylor, but intrigues you in terms of, like I said, all those dimensions and the traits. Got to coach him up. But again, you're bringing a guy in here late day 3, if you have a pick in late day 3 that you can kind of bring in and hopefully groom, that this defensive line coach can go in and groom and make him play. He flashes. There's times where that length flashes. You see a swim move, you see him ability to penetrate, get into those gaps, and be, like I said, an opposing figure at the line of scrimmage, but there's no consistency there.
Right. Definitely a guy who you devote a late day 3 draft pick to, and he could end up becoming a steal in the draft, is how I see Gabe Hall. Let's go over your top 10. And again, these are fits for the Chicago Bears. So when we say top 10 defensive tackles, Danny's not saying that these are the top defensive tackles in this draft. He is saying that these are the top 10 fits for the Bears. He's got Byron Murphy at number 1, Jerzon Newton out of Illinois at number 2, Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State at number 3, Mason Smith out of LSU at number 4, Dwayne Carter out of Duke, number 5, Chris Jenkins, he's got the bloodlines and he's from Michigan at number 6, Rook O'Rororo out of Clemson at number 7. If the Bears pick him, man, I'm going to have to do some rehearsing. At number 8 is Justin. You go ahead, Danny. Say it.
E-Boybe.
And at number 9, Brandon Dorless. And, of course, we just finished talking about Gabe Hill at number 10 out of Baylor. Great stuff. Let's take a quick look here, Danny, at the free agents that are available, because if the Bears do maintain limited draft capital and decide not to add to draft picks, they may be forced to provide depth at the defensive tackle position through the through free agency. But the bad news is that there's not much going on there, man.
It's pretty bleak there, to be honest with you.
The top name, Fletcher Cox, he has retired. So there's no choice. There's no chance he's going to come back. And if he does, he probably would figure out a way to stay in Philadelphia. Although, who knows? Maybe money can lure him out for one final season. He'd be a great bridge player for the Chicago Bears, wouldn't you say?
I just don't know how much he's got left, to be honest with you. I just, it'd be interesting to see it like that. I mean, if you're retired, why would you want to come play for a team that's, up and coming and developing, as opposed to Eagles, who, are probably more in line to contend, right? So
yeah, $5 million. That's why. I don't know a lot of these guys, like Byron Moan out of Seattle, 28-year-old. The kid, he's 30 years old, out of New York Giants, Raheem Nunez Roches, Hassan Ridgeway out of Houston, Lawrence Guy out of New England, Al Woods out of the Jets, all of these guys in their late 20s, early 30s, David Bada. Linville Joseph is a guy that I've always enjoyed when his days with the Packers, but he's not really a need for the Chicago Bears because he's a big Al Billings type defensive tackle. Josh Tupou out of Cincinnati, Nick Williams, 34 years old, Chris Wormley, Marlon. Now we're getting into guys more of the age that Poles usually likes to take a chance on. Marlon Davidson, 25-year-old, Ross Blaylock, 25-year-old, James Lynch, 25-year-old, Albert Huggins, 26-year-old, Curtis Brooks, 26-year-old, TJ Smith, also 26, and then finally Rennell Wren. Not a very enticing group of players, huh?
No, it's not. And any of these guys would be Barnett would be like stopgap 1-year guys, and nothing that would be long term or anything like that. So I think what's going to happen, and we talked about earlier. I think what's going to happen after this draft is over, we'll see what teams will kind of go back and see. All right, what we have, what do we fill? There could be a defensive lineman that no one expected to come off or be free, that could be released or could be available in a trade. So I think that's where they will go ahead and attack that position if they don't fill it in the draft. And right. So I think they're going to go in with the mindset of, hey, number 1, obviously it's Caleb. Number 9, it's probably going to be, let's see what we got in terms of trade offers. If we stay at number 9, you got to take a blue chip player. And right now everyone thinks it's going to be Roma Dunze, which sets you up there offensively. If you stay at 75 with the third round pick, which I know we'll get into it in our mock draft here, I think now you kind of take a look and say, all right, what's best available player, and does it fill a position of need? Now, if your best available player on your board is, for example, a corner, right, or you know, a secondary player, or maybe even a linebacker. You know, do you bypass those? That's a question you have to ask Ryan Poles. Do you bypass those guys to fill up, you know, position of need? Now, in my opinion, you never bypass the better player. What you do is you hopefully can trade down and recoup some more picks if you have multiple guys that are kind of in the same range there. But yeah, it's gonna be curious to see. Like, you know, my biggest thing is what's gonna happen at number 9. Obviously, you know, that's the big mystery. You know, is it gonna be something where a team's going to want to come up and get? Now, obviously, the quarterbacks are the big talk of this you know, this draft, and with 4 going in the first 6 picks is what I'm predicting. You know, who's going to be left available there? You know, who are going to come up? You know, I assume no one's coming up for a quarterback, because I don't think either Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. are guys that teams are going to come up for. So if you're a number 9 and you're looking for a trade partner, you know, what is going to be available for you? And the one thing that's going to be available is going to be offensive linemen, right? It's going to be offensive tackles. And, you know, the Jets are going to have a need offensive tackle. You know, you know, the Broncos potentially have a need offensive tackle. If the you know, like the rumor trade is Minnesota going up to number 5, the Chargers dropping down number 11, they're going to have a need offensive tackle. You know, and the Saints are a team to keep an eye on here with the Bears in terms of, you know, Trevor Penning, their first round pick from a couple of years ago, has been pretty much a bust. Was benched last year, and Ramczyk, their right tackle, is injured, and I think he's probably going to miss the entire year. So they're looking for 2 tackles there. So that could be a team, you know, and they're always been, you know, if they identify a guy, the Saints are known for a team that can go up and make a move. So, you know, if they identify a tackle and he's available there, number 9, you know, that could be a potential trade partner. They have the 14th pick, and I believe they have the 45th pick in the second round. I don't know how that matches up in terms of the trade chart, but that could be something that could entice Poles to make up top down to 14. Yeah, you lose out on Roma Dunze, which would suck, but you drop down to 14 range. Now you're talking about edge guys. Now you're talking about maybe a Byron Murphy. Now, you know, the best pass rusher, in my opinion, edge guy from UCLA. You know, Jared Verse could be there. You know, Dallas Turner might probably be gone, but you're talking about those kind of guys there as well. You know, so it'll be interesting to see, and then you also recoup that second round pick. So that's the intrigue for me right now at number 9, and to see what happens. And also, Poles could just sit there and say, "Hey, I'll take the best guys in these 4 picks and just call it a draft and see what happens."
Yeah. KK is asked the question. Notice that you left Braden Fisk off your list. He's a very athletic and twitchy for a 3 tackle. Why not for the Bears? Can I take a guess as to what you're going to say?
Yeah, I know you know.
Alligator arms.
Well, that's the one thing. Yeah, I mean, 31-inch arms, that's not going to fly here with Eberflus and company. The other thing is, I believe Braden Fisk has been a guy that the media has hyped up and has really made him into, because he went to the combine, had a tremendous, you know, combine, and really stood out in terms of athletic ability. You put on his tape, he's a try-hard guy, he's a hustle guy, Motor's always running hard. But he's the guy who had 6 sacks last year, I think 9.5 tackles for loss. First year at Florida State, he transferred from Western Michigan, and 3 of those sacks and 4.5 of those tackles for loss came in the last game of the season versus Louisville. So for the rest of the year, only had 4.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. So he's not a guy that's really productive. You know, and he's flanked by NFL guys in terms of Jared Verse, Patrick Wilson. Patrick Payton is going to be a first round pick, possibly a second round pick next year on the opposite side there of Verse. And you got Fabian Lovett, who's a guy that could potentially be you know, a late round draft pick here with in this draft as well. So for me, he's a guy, obviously the arm length is a big thing. And just the tape just didn't match the numbers for me. I mean, he just didn't produce. And I just don't see a guy that, you know, is going to be, could he be a rotational guy? Could he be a backup? Could he be a guy that goes and plays for Washington right now and Dan Quinn and be like a 3rd or 4th, you know, 5th kind of a defensive tackle? Sure. But I just don't see him as a fit here for Chicago.
Yeah. All righty. Good stuff, Danny. You're getting some nice compliments from Bruce Ollie, Walter, Jordan, Bruhall, and others in the chat. I want to shift our focus right now to, and Kay says, thank you for your response. Great in-depth answer. I want to shift our focus now to Caleb Williams, because I read an article in The Athletic where they compared the mechanics, the throwing mechanics for all of the top quarterbacks coming out of this draft. It was written by Ted, I believe you pronounce his last name, Neon, And he talked with a bunch of coaches and talent evaluators, and they rated Caleb Williams with the absolute best mechanics coming out of this draft, an almost perfect 5.0 score. He graded out at 4.5. And here's part of what he learned from the people he talked to. One coach said, regarding NFL readiness, no prospect has a foundation for throwing and movement efficiency like Caleb. Although his arm strength is in the 99th percentile, he can throttle and adapt his throw at a similar level to Patrick Mahomes. You'll see guys like Caleb and Mahomes, they have crazy external rotation, another coach said. So what I mean by that is when they start their throw motion from the horizontal L, when they get to that vertical point and start going forward, their arm is able to go as far past as 90 degrees that it allows them to change arm angles with their spine angle. If you notice CJ Stroud, he's a great thrower, of course, but he doesn't have that same external rotation. So, Danny, I'll ask you, is that what you see when you look at Caleb Williams' tape? And I'll just put some generic highlights of him on while you're talking.
Actually, I didn't break it down by the 90-degree horizontal L, whatever that description was there. That would be too scientific for me. But okay. Just looking at every quarterback when I scout, I just want to see, footwork. I want to see the motion. I want to see, is it a little, is there a sidearm action? Is there a little loopy? Is there a little, wind up to the throw? And the one thing you look at by Caleb, and especially if you have to go back to more of last year, because I think this year you see a lot of, him on the run, making some crazy throws off his back foot and all that stuff. But a lot of it, like here, just 1, 2, 3, bam, the ball is coming out, quick hitch and the ball is out, and that's what you want to see. You want to see it in rhythm throws. So for me, with his motion, actually, and this is not hyperbole or just not, I'm not trying to hype anyone up here, but to me, it reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers. And I think if you watch more of the stuff we see from USC this year, I think we'll get to that later on in this clip. We see a lot of back foot throws where he's like kind of falling backwards, and it's not, everything's not perfectly aligned. It's not that picture perfect delivery, but man, he throws a dart on the fly, accurate. This might be it right here. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's right here. Look at that. That's an Aaron Rodgers type of throw right there. He just exactly. You see a guy coming at Aaron Rodgers, and he just, I hopefully show it again. Yeah, well, like here, the guys, he got the pressure coming on him. Does a good job of sidestepping the pressure initially, and then he's got a second guy bearing down on him. And then I want you to see the Aaron part is at the end when he releases the football, where he makes this guy miss. I've seen this so many times with the Bears doing this, Aaron Rodgers doing this to the Bears, so it's kind of ingrained in my brain here.
Yes.
And then bam, he just kind of arm angles it, throws it, doesn't even look where the ball is going, and look where the ball throws. It's accurate on the run, throws the guy open. So, and that's the type of special stuff that you look in like, holy shit, this guy can make some throws. This is another great throw. There's another one against UCLA where he's basically running into the pocket, running up the ladder, climbing the ladder in the pocket, and off one foot throws a dime about 65 yards to a streaking Brendan Rice, hits him in stride. So those are the type of stuff that really you pop out on tape and you say, all right, this guy's got some special ability in terms of throwing ability, so like that. But the mechanics to me, I talk about Aaron Rodgers, and that's another one. That's an Aaron Rodgers throw type right there, where it's all breaking down, but he's just got the natural arm talent, the natural touch and feel to be able to kind of feather that ball and hit the guy in stride, where you don't see it with other guys. Now, in terms of actual mechanics, in terms of being in balance, being always in the opportunity, having the arm ready to go, having the feet in place, always being kind of like CJ Stroud was, that's Jaden Daniels for me. Watching his mechanics, that's more of what you see with a CJ Stroud, where a guy is always balanced, his feet are always ready, he's always, it seems like always looking in the right direction. In terms of if he has to run, he could run and they can quickly adjust and still throw a ball with some zip and some accuracy on the run as well. So, that's to me would be more of a picture perfect, if you will, throwing motion. But Caleb, what he does are things that I don't think you can coach, right? You can't coach stuff like that. The ability to kind of sit there and just kind of wing it from the side, throw it, 40 yards down the football field, hitting the receiver in stride, not even seeing where you're throwing the ball because the guy's bearing down in your face. And those are types of throws. If you put on his tape from last year, and I know a lot of it is based off of his ability to kind of function in structured offense, and that's something that he's gonna have to work on. That's not a knock, but that's something that he's gonna have to sit there and work on, being able to work on a function. Meaning, what I mean by that is basically 1, 2, 3, bam, ball's got to go out. This guy hits on this route, he's open, throw it. don't hold on to the football. A lot of things we saw with Justin Fields last year, or last couple of years as well. But when things break down, this is where you break. This is where I think Caleb kind of gets elevated higher than Jaden Daniels. And when things break down, he can escape, run around, keep his eyes down the football field, and just like that, snap the ball from his from any angle and get it on a fly and accurately down the football field. I think that's the things that kind of elevate him. Above the other guys. So, or Jaden might be more inclined to kind of like, hey, I'm all over the place. My feet aren't set. I'm just going to tuck it and run. So that's how I differentiate the two.
It's interesting. I think it was the Windy City Productions on their Twitter feed, their X feed. They posted 20 minutes of highlights of Caleb Williams, and it was all stuff from the prop pocket. It's throwing in rhythm stuff. And just to, I think how he stated it was, let's see how he does in rhythm. And so those were 20 minutes of throws, and it seems like there was no issue whatsoever. The issues were with the USC, particularly last season, USC's offensive line, not allowing him to throw in rhythm. And so he developed this kind of hero complex that we've seen with a lot of athletically gifted quarterbacks like Justin Fields, like Jay Cutler, even I would throw him into that group, who wanted to do superhuman hero plays because the team was behind, because the pass rush is too heavy and so forth. And so what ended up happening was disasters. Jay Cutler throwing 4 interceptions in one game to the same quarterback, Justin Fields making the mistakes that he made and so forth. And so that's my biggest concern regarding Caleb Williams. Is he going to come into the Chicago Bears organization with that mentality that if I'm not getting time or for whatever reason, I'm going to try to be a hero? And if that's the case, his development is going to be slow and he could disappoint mightily.
Then this is where we had you, I, Coach T, and even John Buffon last year had a problem with Luke Getsy. We're like, all right, let's get Justin in a rhythm. Let's rely on the run game. Let's do the play action stuff. Once you get the run game established, now you can do play action, and now you can do some deep throws with Justin. That's where he excels at, and that's where I think you're going to see him doing this year with Arthur Smith and Pittsburgh. Is just run game heavy, play action. Roll them out, throw deep shots, and all that stuff. But Luke Getsy just never fit. Never went that way, and he just he would run the ball a couple times here and there, and then just Justin would be left to do what he needed to do. But with Caleb, I think hopefully I'm hoping, right, with the new offensive coordinator who's already Shane Waldron's already been an offensive coordinator who's worked with quarterbacks like a Russell Wilson. He went to a Pro Bowl under Shane Waldron. Like a Geno Smith who's went to a Pro Bowl under Shane Waldron, 2 different type of quarterbacks. He builds a game plan or an offense that adjusts to Caleb's strengths. And when Caleb is off and the line is not protecting him, and you see Caleb get into that kind of that hero mentality, let's slow it down. Let's give him a couple of easy throws, whether it's a now throw or could slip screen, bubble screen to a receiver and DJ Moore or something like that. Or a quick pass play to a tight end and flat. Let's get him back in rhythm. Let's rely on the run game, and let's go from there. You're going to have hopefully you're going to have a defense that able now. Remember with Justin and also to Caleb last year, they felt like they needed to score every time they had the ball because the defense wasn't playing well. Now when the Bears finally turned that around in the second half, you saw the Bears could be a little more successful there, stay more into games. And I think if that defense it continues to build on that, now he could have a defense that's all right. You know what? Even if he throws a pick, even if the offense is stalled and that doesn't score in the first 3 or 4 drives, you have a defense that get the ball back for you, and now you can kind of start all over again. So that's the key for me. It's Shane Waldron in terms of how you're going to develop this quarterback. That's the key. And a lot of these things, and the way that they kind of brought in with Shane Waldron, Thomas Brown. Kerry Joseph, these guys they've done these positions that they're in right now previously, right? And they've been in the same offense system, right? Joseph was with Waldron in Seattle. Thomas Brown was and Waldron were both with Sean McVay and with the Rams. So they all have a kind of on the same page here in terms of how to build his offense and build it around a young quarterback. And knowing he's going to have struggles, right? He's a rookie. He's going to learn. He's going to make mistakes. How do you coach him out of those mistakes? How do you keep his head into the game? And how do you kind of keep the offense, on schedule? Is going to be key there.
Okay. Good stuff. And we got an interesting question here from Vizzo Joe. Aldo and Danny, question regarding Caleb off the field. Do you guys think he should stay off of social media once he's a Bear? Why don't you answer first, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Personally, I think if you're an athlete, high-profile athlete like a Caleb Williams, and you're going to be the face of the franchise, I think you should stay off social media. There's no need to get into these Twitter beefs, quabbles, whatever you want to call them, back and forth. No one really wins out of it. You might have a good dig here and there, but it's always going to come back and haunt you. I think for Caleb, if it was me, that's why I love Justin Fields in terms of his mentality. He was never on social media other than to promote something, whatever he was paid to do. Just especially as a rookie, put your head into the playbook, get the trust of your veteran teammates, and let's roll from there. Let's stay off social media and all that stuff. You're a face of a franchise now. What you say, as a freshman or junior at USC is not going to really, depending on what you say, obviously, is not really going to affect you as much as it's going to affect you as a starting quarterback at National Football League for the Chicago Bears. So, and the first overall pick. So I think, with the first overall pick comes a lot of responsibility, not only as with the franchise, but also as the NFL community as a whole. So my opinion and my recommendation to Caleb is pick your battles, and stay off of social media. Nothing really good happens off of social media, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, Vizzo, is he's going to hand his social media accounts to his marketing team, his branding team, because social media is a way to generate revenue. He's going to have companies say, we want you to post this, we want you to post that, and that's what he's going to do. But I don't think he's going to interact with any fans or even read the comments on his X or Instagram feed. If he uses social media at all, it will be within private groups, exclusive DMs or whatever you want to call it for the social media that he uses most, so that he can stay in contact with friends. But I don't think he's going to interact with anyone on social media. It would be the smart thing to do. He'll just use it to help his endorsers get the word out about whatever product he's promoting. All right, it is time now for another shift in plans. I had an idea that I wanted to run with Danny about, and that is the number 75 pick. We've all had a lot of conversations about the number 9 pick, but the number 75 pick could yield a really good player. So what I did is I went on to Pro Football Network, and I ran the draft up until that number 75 pick. So let me set up the machine here so that we can see what we have over at Pro Football Network. And so here we are. The column in the left is the draft results. So Danny, what I'll do is just kind of give you an idea of what has transpired. Let me get rid of some of this stuff here because it's really confusing me. Okay, there you go. So Caleb with the Bears at number 1, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, J.J. McCarthy, Joe Alt, and Dallas Turner are the picks before the number 9th. So I said, hey, let's pick Rome Odunze. Let's give the Chicago Bears that third wide receiver and the heir apparent to Keenan Allen. And then because he's probably a one-year rental, and if he's not, then great. We still have 3 great wide receivers. But he's probably the heir apparent to Keenan Allen. He will be the third receiver this season. And then after DJ Moore probably leaves in 2 years, after his contract is done, Rome Odunze will be the number 1 quarterback, and he would have had 3 full seasons of working with Caleb. After that, the Jets, let's just kind of speed down. And if you want me to stop at any point here to comment on anything, just let me know. But we're nearing the end of the first round here. There goes Jackson Powers Johnson, by the way, the center, going 27th to the Cardinals. Danny, I got a prediction. I don't think JPJ is a first-round pick. You want to comment on that at all?
No, I agree. I think for whatever reason, something's happened. I'm not sure what it is, but he's fallen out of favor, at least out of first-round favor. And I think he's second, maybe even top of third. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree that we could see him in the third round. So Keon Coleman to the Ravens, Jordan
That's
Morgan.
I love Keon Coleman. That's someone guy that Florida State. I've been on him from day one, and he ran a 4.67 40, which he hasn't played at a 4.67. Guys, he's still developing in terms of his ability, but he's a big, tall, physical receiver. First round for me is a bit surprising here, but we'll see what happens. I don't see him going in the first round, but that stuck out to me.
Yeah. It was interesting because Daniel Jeremiah's top wide receivers, he had Keon Coleman I think 10th, maybe not 10th, 8th or 9th on his list. And I thought, wow, I would have thought Keon Coleman would be higher up on DJ's list, but we'll find out. He's going to be a guest on Gabriel Talks Football soon, so we'll ask him about that. In round 2, the Panthers start with Ladd McConkey. Then we travel down Darius Robinson, one of my favorite edge players. He's going to go early in the second round. A lot of people are saying he could be a first rounder.
He's the guy that I thought about hard in terms of putting on my defensive tackle spot, because he's 285, 34-inch arms, 6'5". He's a guy that for me, I think he could eat at defensive tackle inside, and I know he wants to play edge. I think they'll give him a shot to play edge, but I mean, he's a guy, you put 15 pounds there, you can at 290, 295, he can kick inside and be a hell of a 3 technique. So I thought long and hard about putting him on he was number 4 on my edge guys, but it would have been the first guy to ever make 2 of my top 10 lists. But I ended up going traditional.
I loved his interview at the Combine when he was at the podium, and he said, put me anywhere up and down that defensive line, I'll get the job. He sounded so confident, and he made the case for how versatile he is. He is a guy to keep an eye on in the NFL. One of my favorite safeties, probably my favorite safety in this draft, is Tyler Newman. He goes to Washington with number 40. We squeeze on down. I don't believe this. Bo Nix selected number 44. A lot of people are saying, Danny, that he could be a first-round pick. Bo Nix, what are you saying?
He's not a first-round pick for me, but I could see him going in a first round. I mean, he's a guy, obviously, 61 career starts, the most ever in FBS history. So he's guys, he's good in terms of processing and getting the ball out quickly. But his ability to get the ball down with accuracy is a little daunting for him at Oregon. I think that's something that he's got to work on. That's why I see him in that Denver Broncos Sean Payton office. I think he's a perfect fit for Sean Payton in terms of Denver, but Denver got a 12th overall pick in the first round, and I don't think they're going to use a 12th pick on Bo Nix. So maybe Denver trades down in the first round and maybe gets him there, but I just don't see him going in the first round. But stranger things have happened.
Indeed. Now, the thing I gotta say about Bo Nix is, I look at his tape and the guy never throws the ball downfield. Everything got wide receiver screens.
When he does throw, there's a couple of nice throws, but I mean, what really kind of stuck out to me was just the ugliness at the Senior Bowl. I mean, his attempt downfield were just ugly. I mean, overthrown. Really? So that really kind of get him out of the element where he's comfortable with his guys. It just didn't look good. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of guys like him because of his ability to process and the experience. So he's athletic enough. Definitely second round is where I got him going. So if that's probably where he should go. Yeah.
He's played more snaps at quarterback than any quarterback entering this draft. Then we see Adisa Isaac. Great article by Dan Pompey on Isaac and his family and the challenges he's had growing up and as a young adult.
5. That's a guy I was hoping to make it at 75, an edge guy.
Yeah. And clearly he is not. Mitchell with the wide receiver at 46. Corley, another wide receiver at 48. There's your guy, Rook. Oh,
huh?
Yeah, 51 in the second round, pick number 51.
Cole from Houston, he was in my top 10. The tackle from Houston, he's got some first round buzz coming right now. So don't be shocked if he goes in the bottom half of that first round.
I've heard that as well. Yeah. There goes Fisk, Lassiter, the quarterback from Georgia, Leggett and Wilson and Walker, 3 wide receivers gone at 59, 60, and 61. Braylon Trice, a defensive end that a lot of Bears fans have been looking at 63. And now we enter.
I remember my top 10 receivers. That's the guy. I love this guy, Jalen Polk, and he's getting higher and higher on draft boards.
Yep, he certainly is. I keep seeing him higher and higher. You're absolutely right. So we enter now round 3. There goes Chris Jenkins at number 66 to the Cardinals. There goes Michael Hall at 68 to the Patriots. There goes one of your favorite tight ends, Ben Sinnott at 70 to the Giants. Let me get rid of that player infographic. Get out of there. We go down to 74. The Atlanta Falcons take Jatavian Sanders. And so here we are at 75. The Chicago Bears are on the board. And so, Danny, what I'd like to do for you is go position group by position group and share with you the top players that are available. So at running back, Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, but you don't think there's going to be a running back selected at 75, right?
No. The best of the bunch right now is Trey Benson, but I'm not picking a running back.
Okay, so let's look at wide receivers. Now, we did pick up Roma Dunze, but Ricky Pearsall is there. Was somebody who I love.
I love Ricky Pearsall. I love Ricky Pearsall a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll keep that in mind. But I mean, who else is past Malik Washington there? What else we got down there?
Malik Washington, Jalen McMillan, Johnny Wilson, the big tight end / wide receiver, Jamari Trash, Brendan Rice, Jacob Cowing. I don't think the rest of these guys are third round quality.
You've already gotten Roma Dunze, so I mean you've kind of gotten receiver. Like you might, if you had more picks, I still think you need 2 receivers out of this draft, right? But if you had more picks, yes, that's where you can go. But with just 4 picks, it's going to be hard. You have too many other needs. So let's see. I wouldn't go with tight end either. Offensive tackle. Let's see who's offensive tackle, and just in case who's out there.
Sure thing. But so tight ends, just real quickly, Cade Stover, Theo Johnson, Jared Wiley. All right, we'll move on to offensive tackle. Roger Rosengarten is a guy that I was watching Mel Kiper and Field Yates on their ESPN show. They said that they're hearing a lot of noise that Roger Rosengarten is going to be a late first round or early second round pick. What have you heard about this big offense?
He made my top 10. He made my top 10 in terms of my tackles, and he's a guy that, again, that's very athletic. Played at a program that's in terms of high respect in terms of their NFL offensive acumen, and he's a guy that has got some liabilities in terms of power, but definitely a guy that's athletic, and a lot of teams like, especially if you do one of these ride zone schemes. I think Rosengarten is going to be a guy that will kind of fit into. But first round is too much for me. I like the kid, but I think first round is a bit too high. Second, third round is probably where he's probably more fitted to go there.
And Karan Amigadije from Yale, he actually was part of the top 30 visits at Hallis Hall for the Bears. I'm not a big fan of Blake Fisher, but he's there. Delmer Glass, I believe, is somebody that you like, right?
Glaze is not someone that I put in my top 10, but it's definitely a guy that intrigues me, but not right here in terms of this third round pick's got to be a starter for me. And right now I'm leaning, because I don't think anything other than Rosengarten and maybe Javon Cohen, or is that Javon Foster from Missouri, guys that can come in and compete for backup. But I don't think either one of them can displace the current starting tackles. Now, is Rosengarten good enough to kick Darnell right inside, and now you have Rosengarten at right tackle? I don't know. I think I'll wait on that, because you might find some other guys later on in this draft, maybe that next pick where you can pick one of those guys up. But right now, I think I'm good in terms of offense. I'm waiting for you to get to that defensive tab.
All right, but before I do that, I want to take a look at who's available at offensive guard. Christian Mahogany out of Boston College, Dominic Pooney. These are guys that you've talked about in previous shows.
Coleman a lot as a guard. He played tackle at TCU. He's a guy that I like a lot at guard.
So are any of these guys, Mahogany, Pooney, Coleman, Mason McCormick, Isaiah Adams, these are guys that you've talked about in previous shows, do you want to put them in under the consideration list, or are we still talking potentially Rosengarten and Ricky Pearsall?
Ricky Pearsall, Rosengarten, and Coleman from TCU are you can put them on if you want to put them under the consideration tab.
Excellent. All right, so now let's go to defense and look at the defensive tackle. There's your man, Mason Smith, big projection guy. I'd love to see him as a Bears, but not at number 75. Dwayne Carter is there.
Dwayne Carter's there again at 75. Oof, this is intriguing.
And Justin Eboji, and Gabe Hall. By the way, Christian Boyd, who is not on your list, the defensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, he visited Hallis Hall as well. Jawan Briggs is a guy his name really picked up a lot after one of the college all-star games. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at him yet.
Not Briggs, no. I'd look at Logan Lee. I've seen Boyd. Boyd's a pretty powerful guy, but 6'1", just didn't fit here. But definitely a guy that's intrigued, later round. So, yeah, I mean, right now, if you want to put Mason Smith and Dwayne Carter in that to be considered bucket as well, with Pearsall, Rosengarten, and Coleman. Those are guys that Smith sticks out to me right now, and I know the production hasn't been there But that size, that athletic ability, I think that would intrigue the head coach and the staff, especially if they're looking for potential there. But let's see what we got there on edge.
All right, Brandon Dorless, as you said during your evaluation of him as a D tackle, is that a lot of people are looking at him as an edge. And so he's here. Marshawn Nealon, a guy that you have evaluated for us. Austin Booker, another guy. Jalix Hunt is a very intriguing guy out of Little Houston Christian, and another small school guy, Javon Solomon, also here. Jonah Ellis, the edge out of Utah, and Cedric Johnson. So there's some interesting names here in the edge position that could be under consideration. Anyone shooting out at you?
Of those guys, I mean, Austin Booker's guy really, really intrigues me. But he's a guy. He's as a former Minnesota player, transferred to Kansas. Was really a one-year wonder. I think as a redshirt sophomore, had a breakout year last year. Went to the Senior Bowl and really was unblockable. And I see Barlissimo chime in here with Marshawn Nealon. For me, Marshawn Nealon is a power guy. A small school guy where when I watched him, I just nothing really stuck out to me in terms of a guy that's going to be some a double-digit sack guy or anything. Could be a rotational guy or something like that. So a lot of teams like him, a lot of scouts like him. I just haven't seen the benefit of taking him this high. For me, he's a guy that is a power rusher right now. It doesn't show much in terms of technique or in terms of bend or coming on their edge. So it'll be way too high for me to take Marshawn Nealon. So just off that list right there, I mean, we haven't seen the linebackers and the corners and the safeties yet, but just off that list, Mason Smith, Dwayne Carter, Rosengarten, Ricky Pierce all stick out, along with Brandon Coleman.
All right, so let's go to the defensive backfield. Let me make that full screen so it's a little easier on the eyes. Let's go to the cornerback position. Chris Abrams-Drain, the cornerback out of Missouri. Mike Sandristil out of Michigan is a delight to watch.
Undersized.
Very undersized, but he's got a nose for the ball, man. He is fun to watch. Josh Newton out of TCU, Adriel Phillips, Kalen King is an intriguing name out of Penn State, Cam Hart out of Notre Dame. I like Cam Hart a lot, but 75 might be a little too rich for me.
Right. Especially it's not a position of need, right? You have the two guys from last year and Stevenson and Terrell Smith. You have re-signed Jalen Johnson. You have Jalen Jones now as well, and you have Kyler Gordon. So you look like corner is a position where you're pretty fortified there, and I don't think with only 4 picks, I don't think is a guy that you can, or is a position that you can go in and take a here. So and some of those guys, of all the guys, Kyrie Jackson really is a guy that the big tall corner, feisty corner, battles everything from Oregon. That's the guy that stuck out for me there. But again, I don't think corner is a position that I would reach for here. So I mean,
Let's take a look at the safety possession before, and then I've got a trade offer for you to consider. So I like some of these safeties, especially the kid that you pointed out in a previous show, Dadrian Taylor Demerson. I looked at tape of him and really thought that he was an intriguing player. But again, I don't think any of these guys is worthy of a number 75. What do you think?
All right, especially the fact that you have your two safeties kind of locked in there with Kevin Byard and obviously Jaquan Brisker. You invested a pick in Elijah Hicks. You signed Tavares Moore. There's another safety that they signed. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but I mean, you have some veterans there as well. So I think it's not a secondary is not a crying need for the Bears, in my opinion, as it was last year. And I think you fortified that with the picks of Smith and Stevenson. So I think secondary is pretty good now. Obviously, if you have more picks and you're kind of looking out later on and seeing best available, you can probably go get another corner or whatnot. But I think right now you're just kind of looking at fortifying the defensive and offensive line, and that's where I would concentrate on here with this pick. Again, this pick's got to come in, and if it's not starting for me next year, it's got to be a contributor. That's why I wanted either interior defensive lineman or an edge guy, and or an offensive lineman. But Ricky Pearsall is going to be hell of a slot receiver.
Yes.
Guy runs terrific routes, in terms of explosion, ran a 4.39 40. He's about 6 feet, almost 6'1". He's a guy that goes up and gets it in traffic, has no fear, made plays all over it in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, being up and getting contested catches. He's a guy that, again, is going to be a hell of a slot receiver, runs good, clean routes. Really, really love this kid. But, but now I just talked about fortifying the offensive and defensive lines. Do I double up here on another receiver? Yeah, you're giving your rookie quarterback another weapon, so that's, looking more for the future. But, and also with the offensive line, remember, they brought in a couple of veterans, that Jack Curran from Seattle, who knows the system, obviously, with Shane Waldron. He's a backup tackle. They brought in Matt Pryor, who's a veteran who's played tackle, both left and right tackles, also played interior at guard as well. He's been around. He was with the Eagles last year. I believe he's been with the Colts as well. So, gives you some of that veteran, depth there if you're looking for, offensive starters. So, they've come and brought some of these guys in to kind of, protect themselves in case of an injury. But, man, I've always – and that's the thing with number 9 is one of these tackles, like Joe Alt or for me, a Fuaga. If they're up a 9 and you fortify the offensive line, that really, really is intriguing. But here with Rosengarten, who's a guy I like, but is he a guy that's going to come in and kick Darnell Wright to right guard? I don't. Would you put Rosengarten at right guard? That's something that you have to think about. He's athletic. He'll fit the scheme. But the power issue is where he's lacking right now. So I don't know. Brandon Coleman, a guy who's played left tackle, is 6'4", doesn't have the height of a left tackle. Maybe doesn't have the feet of a left tackle, but he's got the length of a left tackle, the 34+ inch arm length. Could kick inside the left guard. Is that something where you can protect yourself with Tevin Jenkins? That's opportunity. But again, I need someone that's going to come in here and start, or at least if not starting, and making a difference next year.
Okay, I think I have the answer for you, and it is in this trade offer that has just come in from the Philadelphia Eagles. They are offering their 120th pick, so you are moving down 45 picks, but you're getting 120, 161, and a third rounder next year for a 6th rounder from next year and the 75th pick. So in essence, really, you're going to move up 3 rounds in next year's draft, and you're picking up 120 and 161 for your 75th pick. Does that make more sense here? Because you can perhaps find a couple of position need players like an offensive lineman, like a defensive lineman with 120 or 161. Or is this draft so devoid of talent that you invest in a player at number 75? Your thoughts?
Yeah, the 120, and correct me if I'm wrong, those are 2 4th-round picks?
120 and 161 are, I think 161 is, let me check real quick.
If I'm dropping out of the 3rd round and I'm getting a 4th and possibly a 5th and next year's 3rd, the next year's 3rd is intriguing, but Philadelphia should be a good team, so that's not going to be a really high pick. So again, 75 is with I love picks, but this is a draft that it's top heavy, right? It's first 4 rounds. After the 4th round, you're probably looking at guys. I heard Eric DaCosta, the general manager from the Ravens. They have 2 or 3 7th-round picks, and they're saying that those guys they're going to have guys available that they don't have draftable grades on. So they're looking to, probably package those guys up and move up to see if they get better picks with those. So again, this is not something that it's going to be appeasing to me as opposed to other years, right? The only thing that really appeals to me in this trade offer is that 3rd round pick from next year. But I'd say for this trade, I would probably reject it. That'd be my initial reaction. So
yeah, and in fact, that is a middle of the round 4th rounder and a late 5th rounder.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
Be trading for. All right, so we'll reject that. And what do you think? Who is your choice then?
Right now, for me personally, off my board, the highest rated players right now are Ricky Pearsall and Mason Smith or Dwayne Carter. Those are the 3 guys that I would put in there. And I think Tooch jumped in on the chat and said, load up on offense. And we got Roma Dunze at number 9. Great pick. He's my 2nd rated right receiver. I think, I said Ricky Pearsall will fit in there as a slot receiver, obviously after assuming you let Keenan Allen go, right? You could pick, and if you even keep Keenan Allen, you have 4 receivers there that are going to be high profile, high offense, and you're going to want to help your quarterback. So, with the 75 pick, I'm either going Mason Smith or Ricky Pearsall. Dwayne Carter is in the consideration as well. So, what do you guys think? Of those three, I've limited down to three.
Yeah, Jordan says that Mason Smith is such a dog, speaks Flus and more than any of the others.
Positive or negative comment?
I think that's a positive comment. Give us more, Jordan.
Is that a positive? Is that a thumbs up, Jordan? Or is he a dog like a good dog, or is he a dog like he sucks?
I think he meant like a junkyard dog like the 85 Bears had, but I could be wrong. That's a tough one, but I gotta agree with Tooch. I love Ricky Pearsall so much. There it goes, Jordan. It's a good one. A dog, a good thing.
Okay. That dog, that way you spell it there, that means good. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Thanks, I guess in that room, you're going to probably have Matt Eberflus saying, I need me a dog. I need me a dog. Yeah. So it might be Mason
He's going to love him. Matt Eberflus is going to love him because of that size, because of the potential. And again, is a guy that's coming off of a year last year that, coming off a 20 ACL from the previous year, a year to recover, but his ability to take out blockers in the middle of the defensive line and show the ability to get in between and bring some pressure there as well. So Mason Smith is going to be really intriguing. You're going to have Matt Eberflus and that defensive staff probably fighting Ryan Poles if this scenario actually plays out. But I mean, for me right now, the highest rated player is Ricky Pearsall on my board, and Mason Smith's right there along with Dwayne Carter. I do love Dwayne Carter as well, so I think he's going to be a good pro. I think it looks like the group and you want Ricky Pearsall. So let's double up on receiver and stack that receiver room. And bye-bye Velus Jones.
There you go. Now, that brings me to a question that was asked on the Gabriel show. I'll ask you for your opinion. I think it was from oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Oh gosh, he used to work at the bar room. Anyway, he said, would you trade some of next year's draft capital to get back in either to the second round or have an additional pick in the third round? Would you consider, because the Bears do have 8 or 9 picks next season, would you consider trading some of that draft asset to either move up from 75 a little higher or to add after 75 or just before 75?
Depends what I'm going for, right? If I think the conversation is really right now is centered around, with the Bears trade up from number 9. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is dropped to number 5 or number 6, would you make that move and go get him? Depends on, I think the talk was the second round pick from Carolina, next year, to go get him. And I love Marvin Harrison Jr. and I think he's going to be a heck of a receiver. But Rome Odunze isn't that far off in my opinion. I think there's it's Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, and then Malik Neighbors, right? So I think if you stay at number 9, you can still keep that. You can still keep that number 2 pick from Carolina next year and take Rome Odunze. I would just do that. Again, I love Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think I would do that. And like I see, this scenario could play out for you where at 75 you could have a guy like Ricky Pearsall. Now you can double up and say, all right, I get Rome Odunze and Ricky Pearsall to add to Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. What was a futile more bound receiver room under Justin Fields, where Dante Pettis and Byron Pringle were your number 1 and number 2 options, now is loaded with talent. So, but again, the one thing that I will go back and with this pick specifically here is that Mason Smith and the need for that interior pressure guy. So, that's going to be something, if this plays out, I think this is going to be something we'll see how much Eberflus has in terms of sway in that draft room.
Yeah. And I think he had quite a bit with the 2 defensive tackles chosen last year. I'm assuming both of those were his picks, but we'll see. Yeah, I think there is a commitment to give Caleb a lot of weapons, and so Pearsall would make sense from that perspective, particularly since, you got Keenan Allen on that short contract. And I just, do you foresee there being any chance Keenan Allen's contract is extended?
That was a question I posed to everybody after the trade was made. I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense. You give a 4th round pick for a guy that, coming off his best, stat wise, his best productive season, but he's missed 11 games in the last 2 years. He's a guy that's going to be 31, 32 into the season. You're going to give him a contract extension into his 34th, 33rd, 34th year. He's going to want at least 2+ years in terms of contract. I'm like, doesn't make sense. I don't understand, especially with a class that's this deep in terms of receiver. Maybe it could have gone and signed a Tyler Boyd, who, it's not the same caliber receiver as a Keenan Allen, but he's a serviceable number 2 or 3 receiver. And then you can go ahead and get Roman Dunze, will be your number 2, and it possibly double up again. Like here, we have an example of getting Ricky Pearsall. Now you got Pearsall, Dunze, 2 young guys, go with DJ Moore, and you have a Tyler Boyd. Just an example here as a veteran presence. That's a solid room, and you keep your 4th round pick as well.
Yeah, I like that thinking. I like it a lot. There was one more segment planned for the show, but we're hitting the 2-hour mark. We'll save that for next week's show or a future show. I just wanted you to comment on some thoughts I had about some players, but we'll save that. Next week's show, everybody, is going to be a big one for us. It's going to be really intense participant engagement. So I want all of you in the chat room and all the people who watch this show to start firing away questions for our next week's show. Danny is going to do the best he can to answer as many questions as possible. So if you are on X, you can pose the question to at DSHIMON56, at DShimon56, or at Barroom Network. That's my account. Or if you want to send me a little video, or if you want to send me audio, reach me on my DMs, and I'll tell you how you can send that stuff in. Or if you just want to share your questions here on the show live, that'll work. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you subscribe to our Barroom Network. All you got to do is go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and you'll see our name come up there. Register, it's free, and then we'll be able to see your comments on our feed here from our control room. Danny, any final thoughts before we pull the plug on this episode?
No, I'm also going to be diving into the corners and some safeties next week as well. Give you instead of a top 10 in each position group, because we already covered that. I don't know how feasible, if they stay with 4 picks, drafting a safety or a corner will be in this year's draft. But I'll give you my top 5 corners and my top 5 safeties next week as well, in terms of guys that fit the scheme. But yeah, I mean, if you guys, please, whatever player you have, questions you have, just fire them away. And then if I get a compilation of those players, I can probably do some tape study. If not for next week, then definitely for the show that we're gonna have right before the draft. I'll get them all in as much as I can and giving a scouting report on those players.
Yep, and there were names brought up in a couple of our early shows that I am going to gather and send over to Danny. He's going to do his work on that. Zach has a question. Tell us everything you know. And then Jesus, Zach. Zach says, tell us everything you know. And then when I was 5, I pushed my sister down the stairs and blamed it on the dog. What do you think he means by that, Danny?
I have no idea.
He's a big Springsteen fan, so maybe it's a lyric to a Bruce Springsteen song that I'm not sure of. So I'm not quite sure at all.
I think it's a draft question. Is it a draft question?
Yeah, it's got to be a draft question. It's the Goonies, man.
Oh,
I'm not sure how that relates to the
time. Yeah. Wow, I don't remember. Have you watched that movie? I think I watched that movie. I'm not even sure.
I watched it, but like half paid attention to it. I think I was making out with somebody. 14 days, 21 hours, and 2 minutes, 18 seconds until the NFL draft.
This does not bare your soul. What are you talking about? We can't talk about that kind of stuff.
That's true. Cliff says, although I'm just waiting for the draft, love hanging out with you guys and ladies. I hear you, Cliff. Yesterday, Danny, on Bare Their Souls, Dan Aguirre, who doesn't follow the draft at all, he doesn't follow college football and so forth. And so we spent an hour.
100 prospect list?
It doesn't. Oh, women. Yes. Not players.
I thought he was engaged. Hold on. I thought he was engaged.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, he is so in love, this guy. And he is sending me tweets about, all of the things they're doing together and stuff. Much of it I cannot repeat for public consumption. Vizzo Joe asked a question. Yeah. Are you doing a live draft show? Yes, we are. In fact, Danny and I are going to talk about it right after we get off the air, but we will be live on Wednesday night, the day of the first round pick. No, excuse me. That's Thursday.
We'll have a show on Wednesday night, a draft on tap, and then Thursday night we'll be live for the first round, and then
exactly
Friday as well.
Exactly. So lots of football. And then Greg is also going to have shows the day after each of the rounds. So on Friday morning and on Saturday morning, he will have shows so he can give you his immediate reaction to what's going on. So we got tons of draft coverage, and we're making plans to give you some of the healthiest draft coverage you will find from the non-mainstream media. All right, Danny, say goodbye to your fans. You got a lot of them.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Give me those names.
Yeah, send those names over. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.